All right, we are in chapter 1. We just have learned our Greek alphabet, and so what we want to do is we want to take a little time and go over some of the other small things that we need to know in order to read, vocalize, and translate the Greek New Testament. So let's go over the gamma nasal. Oftentimes you'll have this double gamma. That's the most common. You could have the gamma kappa. Make that a little bit bigger here, gamma kappa. You could have the gamma chi, right? Or you could have the gamma xi, or the gamma gamma. And these are called the gamma nasal. So the first one of these two will always be translated and vocalized as an N. So your gamma nasal here is going to be ng. This one is going to be nk, nk, a little more hard, nks, as in sphinx. So yeah, that's your gamma nasal. The most common word we'll have with that is the word angelos. I'll spell that for you here. This will actually be in your vocabulary for this chapter, so you'll learn this pretty quickly. But angelos, and that's the word, that is actually the word we'll get for angel, but that's a gamma nasal. The first letter there is pronounced as an N. All right, let's move on to section 3. All right, it's really important to know, because what you're going to do is, as you're reading, you're going to see these two distinct marks over the initial vowel of a word, or to say it better, anytime a word starts with a vowel, you'll have either this smooth breathing mark or this rough breathing mark. Let me make those just a little bit bigger for you. So we have the alpha here with the smooth breathing mark, and an alpha here with the rough breathing mark. So the apostrophe is the smooth one. The reverse apostrophe is the rough breathing mark. And that's because the Greeks did not have the letter H, a way of writing the letter H. Now there's some history there. So this letter is actually the capital Eta, right? This letter for us, right? And there's some history there that I would love to share with you sometime. It's a bit of trivia though. So, but what they did to compensate is anytime they have a vowel that starts a word, or say it another way, anytime you have an initial vowel on a word, you'll have a breathing mark. So that'll determine whether you do the H sound or not. So the smooth breathing mark, the apostrophe, would be no H. The rough breathing mark is the H sound. So this would be ah, and this would be ha. If you want to think of it this way, this is an apostrophe, not a apostrophe, right? So the apostrophe is the smooth with no H sound. And if you want to think about this, the rough breathing mark here as a apostrophe, the reverse apostrophe, if that helps you, great. In the case of a diphthong, which is two letters, two vowels that are put together, we'll learn about those next actually. When two letters are put together as in alpha iota, and those are pronounced as one, just like in English, OU is soup, or AI is I, or AU is aw, right? They'll actually put it over the second letter of a diphthong. So that would be high, and this would be I. Right? So that's the rough and smooth breathing mark. Again, don't stress over it. We'll be pronouncing it so often. And just a note down here, if you have a capital letter, it'll go in front of it unless the capital is a diphthong, because then you'll have the first letter is the capital, the second letter will have the breathing mark. So anytime you have a diphthong, it's going to be on the second letter of that diphthong. All right, let's look at 4 and 5. All right, now that we know what a breathing mark is, anytime, rose is just a strangely unique word in that anytime that starts a word, it'll have a rough breathing mark on it. And that just goes to show you that the rho, I should probably put it over here where you can see it a little bit better. The rho wasn't just a sound like we do in English. It was probably more like a hro, something like that. But we don't make too much of a big deal out of that. So, but just be aware and don't be surprised when you have a word, like say this word here, Rema, that's a moo. Sorry about my bad moo there. I'm still getting used to this pad. The rema, you could pronounce that rema, or you could just do rema. No big deal. All right, and we already have pointed out, and won't say it too, you have your final sigma here, and then you have your medial or initial sigma here, and we've covered that, so shouldn't be anything new there. All right, I mentioned this when we talked about accentuation, but notice this word is a diphthong, not diphthong. So I used to tell my students, don't be a diphthong, call them diphthongs. Although don't make too much of an issue with that. So these are the diphthongs in Greek. Again, just read through them. Do not memorize them. But just I'll quickly give you the pronunciation. And again, we will go over the pronunciation all the times that we vocalize. So I'm not too worried about it. I, a, oi, ow, ow. That's not you, it's ow. Oo as in soup. Wi, as in quick. And ow, ow, as in eta upsilon. In Greek, we have a phenomenon known as improper diphthongs, otherwise known as iota subscripts. So, again, if you don't even have to listen to this, but I just have to say it so you understand. Maybe down the road it will be important to you, maybe not. So if you have a long vowel followed by the iota, and it's not a diphthong, they're going to subscript that. So you can kind of see the iota hidden under there at these points. Let me draw them. I'll put one over here. So if you take, for example, the alpha iota subscript, it looks like that. Pronunciation-wise, that's going to be pronounced ah. We don't go ai. It's not a diphthong. It's why it's called an improper diphthong. But we would, nonetheless, we have to note it there because that does change spelling. That's an eta iota subscript, and we would pronounce that a, a, and then we'd have the omega iota subscript, and that would be just simply o. Okay, so again, I rarely call these improper diphthongs. Most of the time, we'll just call them iota subscripts. And again, just remember that they do not affect pronunciation, but it does make a difference, and you'll see here at the beginning of chapter 2 why they make a big difference. All right, section 8 here we did with double consonants. I want you to notice this line of letters are all what we would call labials. You can't form p, b, and f without using your lips. P, b, and f. And you can hear this one is a hard stop, p, and b is also. But notice f, you actually use your lips and you have it, it's called a fricative technically, but you can hear the vibration of your lips to form the f or the f sound. All right, so anytime you add a sigma to that, you could actually change the spelling to the psi, So if I added this, right, they would actually change the spelling to this, right? And we have mentioned the double consonants before, but it's kind of logical, right? If you go ps, all right, just save the letter ps. If you say that fast enough times, you're going to say ps. Same thing with the ps. You keep saying that fast enough, which in English we speak quickly. In Greek they did too. So that becomes the psi. The t, d, and th, those are clearly dentals. T, d, and th, you can hear that. And those are going to be turned into a zeta. Zeta. T, z, th. Right? And those are going to turn into the zeta. Kappa, gamma, and chi are going to turn into the xi. Because you can hear that. X, x, x. Right? You can't really, you're going to have to change it to that if that makes any sense. So there we have it. We have our double consonants, the psi, the zeta, and the xi. All right, a little last section in this chapter before we really move on towards vocalizing and identifying these things. There are 3 distinct Greek accent marks. The acute, which is the upward one. I'll just use an X here to move. When it goes up, it's acute. This is the grave. If you think about it, it's going down towards the grave is how I remember it. And then your second one is actually a combination of you two, because that used to be an ascending pitch, and this used to be a descending pitch. And so if you had an ascending and descending pitch, what did you do? You had this, Well, that got changed into that, or even sometimes it'll be written this way, that. So that's your circumflex. You have your acute, your grave, and your circumflex. So there was a pitch difference in how it was originally spoken. It's not done so in modern. So what we do is just use that, and we put a little bit more stress on the syllable. Just as you note down here, if you have something like a circumflex that has a smooth breathing underneath it, it'll look something like that. You can see those there, or even a rough breathing would look the opposite, because remember that's an apostrophe, not a apostrophe. That's the smooth breathing mark. This would be the rough breathing mark. It looks something like that. And there you have it. All right, so let's talk about where to go next. Now that you've learned all the letters and you can identify all the breathing marks and accent marks, I want you to go through and I want you to vocalize again John chapter 4 verses 11 through 15. My recommendation is just go through and vocalize and try to put the stress on those accented syllables, and I think we have a video that covers that as well.